If you want to have an army to go along with your Stormlight miniatures, or you want to play an Alethi-based army for Warhammer, I'll show you how I found, assembled, and painted my Alethi army within 4 months, and I fielded them during a Warhammer tournament. I assembled and painted over 100 miniatures. This was before the Stormlight miniatures were a whiff on the wind of Reddit. But now that the Kickstarter is on its way, I'm very excited to get these actual Stormlight sculpts alongside my Alethi army that I've already created. Spearmen are the core of the Alethi army, but finding miniature sculpts that fit the lore was difficult. I eventually landed on grouping beasts, Saxons. Up close, they don't look that great, but I was going for more of a high-level view that they would look awesome on the battlefield. Next, I built some heavy infantry, and I knew my Alethi army would need many of these guys to hold the ground as well as pack a punch on the battlefield. I took inspiration from Oathbringer on page 266. Quote, "A block of men so armored that it might as well have been solid stone." So I took inspiration from that, and I found Perry Miniatures has a line of War of the Roses, foot knights, and they seemed, in my mind, to have a very close match to what I would expect these heavy infantry to look like. So I made half of them a solid wall of stone, as referenced earlier, with shields and short swords. And then the other half I made more offensive infantry, kind of indicative of when Adolin came out to flank the Barshendi in the Battle of Narek. For my ranged attacks, I took inspiration from Dalinar's flashbacks in Oathbringer, page 767. Quote, "Primarily archers who wore no armor and were trained for long distance running. These were my mobile, quick strike force." Perry Miniatures' War of the Roses infantry sprue gave me lightly armored archers as I was able to assemble, just wearing leather jerkins. Up next came a squad of elites. I really took inspiration from the opening scene in Oathbringer when they're running across the burning field to flank the town. They crashed into the spearmen and they threw the opposing army into chaos from their flanking maneuver. So these guys were quick and they hit hard. So I took a mix of Perry Miniatures again. I took a mix of their different infantry sprues and their mercenary sprue to create this ragtag unit of deadly killers. My Shardbearer, this doesn't really fit the Dalinar army theme, but I wanted a Shardbearer in my army. So I took one of the Stormcast Eternals from the Games Workshop range, and it fit the mold of a Shardbearer really well. So I picked up a paint starter kit with 2 Stormcast Vindicators and kit patched a big sword onto him. I painted him like Adolin because I already had the blue, and I wasn't brave enough to create Dalinar and Shardplate yet, although I'm really excited to get the Shardbearer models from the Kickstarter to see how they can fit in my army. Other heroes that I wanted to field, I took Dalinar's model. He kind of fell into my lap when I received the shipment from Perry Miniatures. They included a free metal figurine, and it matched my preconceived notions of what Dalinar would look like during this time. So jumping into my Warhammer list, I chose City of Sigmar as my allegiance, and because it has a huge range of units, within Cities of Sigmar, there's a few different cities you can choose as your primary city, and I chose Tempest Eye, which is indicative in Rhythm of War. It's referenced that the Alethi tactics were fast and mobile, and this lined up really nicely with my idea of Dalinar's elites and the archers, and just being able to move fast and strike hard. So for the spearmen, I fielded them as Dread Spears. They had a great solid line of defense, and they were pretty mobile, with 6-inch move and 4-up save. Heavy infantry with shields, I fielded them as Iron Breakers. That 3-up save is really good, and they were able to soak up a ton of damage that was directed at Dalinar. The heavy infantry with polearms, I fielded them as Hammerers. It wasn't an ideal fit for these people because they didn't really move fast, but they were really good at smashing and hitting hard when they were able to fight. Archers, I fielded as Shadow Warriors because I really felt like they were able to deep strike and deploy anywhere behind enemy lines, indicative of them running around the flanks and just being really good mobile strike force. The elites, I fielded as Phoenix Guard, and ever since I've been playing City of Sigmar Warhammer, I have almost never left home without a 20-man squad of Phoenix Guard, just because they are an all-around good unit. They have great attacks, they're fast with 6-inch move, they're hard to kill because of the Witness to Destiny rule, but as I was playing the Alethi, I called it the thrill, because they just wouldn't die because they're so excited to kill everyone. The Shardbearer I ran as Gotrek. The only issue was that Gotrek in the rules is a 4-inch move, which is not fast, and Shardbearers are supposed to be super fast. So that was a lore miss. But when he hit the enemy, he hit like a truck, and he just leaves a bloody paste behind him. To round out my roster, I brought a couple Rune Lords. They have great buffs to the heavy infantry. Dalinar, I fielded him as a Warden King. I mean, it wasn't a great fit, but I needed him for some of the buffs and some of the synergies in the Cities of Sigmar army. I threw in a Sorceress. I called her my Lightweaver. It's not lore related, but I didn't want to go to a tournament without some kind of spell casting power. To recap the tournament, I went through 3 battles. I won 2 of them. The first battle was against some ogres, my heavy infantry. They got obliterated. But I was able to tie them down so that Adolin was able to get in and just shred a bunch of ogres. And I eventually won that one just by Adolin just being a meat grinder. And then this battle here was against Slaves to Darkness. There were lots of monsters on the field, and my army wasn't really good at handling monsters, but I was able to kind of hold my ground, and it was a really close match, and Slaves of Darkness won that one. And then I played another game against the Daughters of Cain. It was a really close match, but I pulled through at the end. By the end of the day, I was exhausted, but I had a ton of fun playing this army like I imagined how they would operate in the books. They were just so fun to see on the field of battle and taking on different enemies. So I learned some lessons as I was making this army. Number 1 is that my spearman choice may not have been the best out there. There are other spearman options out there, such as Oathmark Elf Infantry. I thought those could be kind of a better fit with their clean-shaven faces and their breastplates. There's some others. You can maybe go to Anvil Industries, and I found a couple different options of like dress uniform legs and different torsos and shoulder pads and cloaks that could maybe really be good for Cobalt Guard. My army was not as mobile as I wanted it to be. Being from Tempest Eye, it was really good at moving fast in the first turn, but then after that it kind of just was stuck basically wherever it was, except for my Shadow Warriors being able to drop in somewhere. Next time I'd probably buy some Perry Miniatures Cavalry from War of the Roses line as well, just to see some heavy cavalry or some light cavalry on there. I know the Alethi didn't have a ton of it, but they did have some, and it could be fun to kind of play with a small unit of cavalry, seeing how they could enhance the roundedness of my army. In Rhythm of War, I found it really interesting that they were getting into pike formations. The War of the Roses line from Perry Miniatures does have a pikeman that I could create. I think it'd be really fun to maybe try out some of those tactics. However, there's just not a good fit in Warhammer Age of Sigmar for a pike formation. I think the closest you can get would be the Wardens from the Lumineth, but the Lumineth as a whole don't really fit the Alethi theme. But maybe I could bring them as an ally. I don't know, but I'm really intrigued by where Brandon Sanderson is taking the military tactics of his books, because it started out kind of with spearmen, and then it has morphed into pike formations, just going head to head. And that's reminiscent to me of the pike and shot era, so maybe we'll see gunpowder soon coming into play. That'll be kind of interesting to see the evolution of warfare as these battles continue. So yeah, there you have it. I had a lot of fun creating this Alethi army. I hope you enjoyed looking at this. How did I do? Do you have other thoughts of things that I missed or things that I could have done better? I'm happy to hear your thoughts. I'll post the links to the different miniatures I used in the description, and enjoy making your Alethi army.